Hello everyone and welcome back to The Games Must Go On, a series where I play games in definitely developer-intended ways. Today we're taking a look at Super Mario 3D World, a game that features 8 worlds that we completely rampage through and crush everything in our path. But today I actually learned that murder is apparently wrong, so we're going to be a little bit more polite. That's right, today we're asking the question, can you beat Super Mario 3D World as a complete pacifist? Let's go! The rules are simple. We have to reach the game's end without killing a single enemy. A kill being defined by basically anything. This includes things like melee attacks, projectiles, power-ups, screen wipes, and even the gamepad. And no, I don't care how complex the Rube Goldberg setup is, if you trigger it, it still counts as a kill. Although there are a few exceptions. There are 3 main exceptions, the first of which being flagpole kills. That's because the moment you touch a flagpole, all enemies spontaneously die. And because, well, we've already finished the level at that point, I feel like it's fair to give this a pass. The second exception is when an enemy kills itself or kills another enemy. That's because if an enemy doesn't realize that friendly fire is in fact on, I don't believe that is my fault. And then we get to the final exception, that one being the meta murder count. That's because some enemies are in fact required to be killed in order to spawn warp boxes, green stars, and pipes and whatnot. And because these are required for basically story progression, I will allow them, but not without hindrance. Every time one of these is killed, we will add 1 count to the meta murder tally. Our goal is to minimize this tally to the absolute minimum it could go. But with that out of the way, we can finally hop into the run. So let's go. Our run begins like any other, that being in 1-1. Although, just like any other run, 1-1 is trivial and we're actually able to move on to 1-2, which isn't so lucky. That's because it features our first impossible green star. Normally you would kill 2 Koopa Troopas, but we can't do that for obvious reasons. While technically we could sacrifice 2 meta murders to do this, I'm not desperate, so we're going to ignore this green star. However, it also features another major problem, that being we have to take the secret exit. That's right, we can't explore the rest of World 1 for any other green stars. That's because the next level is the Charging Chuck Blockade, which would add 2 meta murders, and I don't really feel like adding meta murders just yet. But by taking the secret exit, we can skip that blockade and move directly to 2-1. And what do you know, the second world isn't actually that bad, as we're able to breeze through 2-1, 2-3, and 2-4 before we reach a roadblock. This roadblock is of course the Mega Galumba Blockade, where we have to kill 3 Mega Galumbas in order to spawn a green star in order to beat the level. And there's no split paths to help us, so unfortunately this becomes the first 3 meta murders on our list. But hey, at least it'll get better from here, right? Well, unfortunately not. That's because our next level is Double Cherry Pass, and at the very end we have to kill a Fire Bro in order to proceed. And unfortunately, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get the Fire Bro to shoot himself in the face. The only way out of this is to jump on him, adding 1 more meta murder to the tally. But hey, at least with this out of the way, we have enough green stars in order to move back to 2-2, which actually has 1 major problem. We have this section with micro Goombas and platforms that you can only move by blowing into the gamepad. And blowing into the gamepad actually blows micro Goombas backwards. So obviously we don't want to blow into the gamepad. Instead, we can do some really precise platforming around the micro Goombas in order to avoid them. And with that, 2-2 was pretty easy besides that part, and we were able to move to 2-tank. Now 2-tank is actually somewhat tricky, that's because all the bullet bills and whatnot are flying around. Although, with good spatial awareness, we are able to avoid everything and get all the green stars here before we arrive at Boom Boom, who we obviously have to take down in order to spawn the warp box to the next area. So unfortunately that is 1 more meta murder, but at least World 2 is done, and we're able to move on to World 3. We begin in 3-1, where we actually have one problem, that being in order to get a green star we have to kill some parabeetles, or at least that's what the game wants us to do. Instead, I went ahead and froze them in place with the gamepad and then stuck around them to get the green star. With that, we were able to finish 3-1 and move on. And hey, what do you know, after that the rest of World 3 is pretty easy. Although we do have to add 5 more meta murders, those being from the 3 Magic Koopas we have to kill, as well as from Pom Pom, and then finally Histocrat. But these are bosses and a blockade, so we don't really have much chance to skip these. So that's 5 more meta murders, and that brings our total score up to 10. But after that, I actually have some good news about World 4. We only have 1 meta murder here, and it's this Piranha Creeper in 4-2. Unfortunately, this also has some bad news with it. That being, we can only go up to World 4-2 before having to take the secret exit to World 5. That's because, if we did not take the secret exit and took the normal exit, we would have to fight the boss of this world, which would cause 4 meta murders. And we can't just take both the secret and the normal exit because remember, there's this Piranha Creeper here. And by taking both exits, you would actually have 2 meta murders. So in order to save 1 singular meta murder, we're going to have to skip this entire world basically and move right to World 5. So that's a pretty bad move for green stars, although it is necessary for our cause. But with that out of the way, let's move to World 5. And hey, none of the levels here actually add on any complex strategies. However, the world does add on 6 extra meta murders, those being in the form of a boss and the 5 charging chucks in the enemy blockade. But with that out of the way, we can move on to World 6. And what a world it is! Even starting in 6-2, we have an additional 2 meta murders. That's because, at the very end of 6-2, we have to kill 2 bullies in order to spawn a warp box. However, there is a strategy to avoid one of these. Now, bullies can push you, but they can also push each other. We can abuse this to make them push each other off the ledge, only requiring us to kill 1 bully at the end. That's because the AI is good enough not to just jump off. But with that, we were able to save 1 meta murder and only add 1 to our total. And we can move on to the rest of World 6. Unfortunately, he wasn't the last bully that we have to kill in World 6. That's because the Prince Bully exists and he's an enemy blockade that we clearly have to take down for a green star and the ability to move on. But speaking of green stars, 6-5 actually has a troublesome one. That's because it has a couple of ice skating Goombas blocking it. However, with a well-timed jump, we can actually avoid these guys and grab the green star and move on. After that, we have 2 more meta murders to deal with in World 6. Those being Boom Boom and 6-Tank and of course Monty Boss Blob, who has a little problem of the boss blobs. Now, what I recommend doing is, after Monty explodes, go ahead and lure the boss blobs away, so that way they don't become collateral damage. After they're far enough away, go ahead and run over to Monty and jump on his head 3 times, and there we go. Now, one small thing to note, all the boss blobs actually wither away once Monty is dead. However, I would say that these don't count as meta murders, for the small thing that they are part of a boss. And because they are part of a boss, I feel like it should only count as 1 meta murder. Not to mention, after killing Monty, you only get points from his death, not all the boss blobs around him, which would normally give you points when you jump on them. But with that out of the way, World 6 is done, and we're able to move on to World 7. This world actually starts off pretty strong, and that's because of 7-1, or Fort Firebros, where we have to kill 2 Firebros in order to spawn warp boxes to move to the next sections. Now, that's a big problem because I don't want to kill 2 Firebros in the first level of this world. My solution? Well, these warp boxes take us across the lava to sections that we can see in the previous. Now, if we could jump these gaps, we would skip the need for a warp box altogether. However, these gaps are quite large, so only with a Tanuki suit can the first one be cleared. However, the second one can't be cleared even with a Tanuki suit. Although, we do have one other secret tool, that being Luigi. That's because Luigi, while having a higher jump, doesn't actually matter. It's for his secret skill that everyone seems to know. It's doing absolutely nothing. By picking up Luigi, we can actually glide across the gap and then throw him up as sort of a grappling hook. After spawning Toad back in with a bubble, we can finish the level off. This was honestly probably one of the most difficult levels of this challenge. But with that, let's move on to the rest of World 7. Our next problem comes from 7-4, where we actually have to kill 3 bullies at the very end in order to spawn some platforms to the flagpole. However, there's a better way to deal with this. Now you might remember from 6-2 that we can get bullies to push each other off ledges. Now we could do this, but it still leaves one bully at the very end that we'd have to take down. And obviously we don't want to do that because that still adds another meta murder to our count. Instead, what we're going to do is give ourselves a Tanuki Leaf and grab Luigi and run as fast as we can, jump off the platform, and we just barely are able to make it to the flag. And with that, we're able to move on. And that was actually the last difficult part of World 7. Now we do have to take down the Prince Bully again in a rematch, so that's another meta murder added. But besides that, we're pretty much at the end. But pretty much is not the end. That's because in order to get into the castle, we have to have 130 green stars. I only had 122, 8 short. So we needed to go collect some more. The first group of green stars that I found was a group of 5 located in World 1 in the Captain Toad stage. Now normally we can't access this because the only way to get to it is by building the bridge from defeating the charging Chucks. But there's actually a second way to get to it. Now in World 5 there's a pipe that takes you to the golden train level that gives you a whole bunch of lives. But there's actually a second use of it. There's actually a split path that both takes you to the World 3, the Histocrat fight, and there's also a pipe that takes you all the way back to World 1. But not to the first part of World 1 that you would normally warp to with the map select screen. No, it actually takes you to the second half. And this half is the one with Captain Toad. From there we can easily beat the level and take away 5 more green stars. The other green stars were collected from levels that I just happened to not collect the green star in on my first playthrough. In levels like Clear Pipe Cruise, Fort Firebros, and Rammerhead Reef. And yes, that means I had to play through Fort Firebros again, which was definitely fun. But since we have enough green stars now, it's time to take on Bowser. And the level isn't too terribly tricky. There is one part where you have to have a Tanuki suit in order to make the jump, but overall it's not that bad. Now, I only have one question. Is Bowser getting destroyed here a meta murder or not? I'm counting it as one, but it's debatable. But with that, we've beaten a game and Mario 3D World isn't over yet. We still have World 8 to go through, so let's go. Surprisingly, World 8 isn't that bad. It has a couple of tricky parts like the second green star for Plessy's Downhill Dune, or the third green star for Bowser's Express, but besides that, it's a pretty easy world. And heck, we're able to get almost every single green star in it, even from the Mystery House. But it does come at a cost. We have to take out 3 meta murders, 1 for the rematch with Pom Pom, and 2 for the rematch with Monty Bosswob and a rematch with Histocrat. But with that out of the way, we're at Bowser's front gate. Unfortunately, even though we were able to get almost every green star here, we are still too short. Unfortunately, there's no more freebies, and in order to do this, we're going to have to get creative, and for that, we're going to go to the Firebro hideout in World 6. And yes, it has to be the one in World 6 because it includes not only Firebros, but Boomerang Bros. Now you might be wondering why a Boomerang Bro is important, but for me to get to that, I need to explain the bros in general. There's a Boomerang Bro, Fire Bro, and a Hammer Bro, each of which throwing their respective projectile. Now, these projectiles interact with Mario by hurting him, but they can also interact with other bros by killing them. So if a Fire Bro throws a fireball at another bro, it'll take it out. Now that's great and all, except if we had a Fire Bro take out every enemy in the room, we're still left with the Fire Bro. So what do we do about that? Well, it's quite simple. We have to make 2 bros take each other out at the same time. Only problem with that is, while projectiles interact with enemies, Projectiles also interact with other projectiles. So, if we have two fire bros throw fireballs at each other, you kind of don't have a result because the fireballs collide and neither bro takes damage. The only exception to this is boomerang bros, whose boomerangs go through each other, allowing them to hit the boomerang bro on the other side. That isn't easy though, because the boomerang bros like to jump around quite a bit. And even after a lot of testing, I still wasn't getting anywhere. Until after about an hour, I finally got this attempt. Alright, we're going to hold him here. Oh my gosh, it actually worked! Oh my gosh! We did it! And no cheese required. Haha! With that, we get another green star without killing anyone. We definitely didn't do anything to provoke any violence in this room. All we need now is one more green star, and I know exactly where we're gonna get it. In 5-5, there's a room full of light up panels that once you light up, it spawns a green star. Only problem is, after lighting up all the panels, all enemies in the room die. This is why we haven't been able to complete these light up rooms in the past. However, this room actually gives us some help, that being the enemy of choice are bombs. And the bombs, after they see you, explode a little while after, which means we can kill them without actually having to kill them. Now, this does come with a catch. These bombs infinitely respawn out of these baddie boxes. However, I have one more trick up my sleeve. That is, baddie boxes won't spawn enemies if you're standing on them, which means if we were to bring 3 players into the cloud area, we would be able to stand on each of the 3 baddie boxes and prevent any of the bombs from spawning. The only problem now is the camera. However, this can be fixed with careful movement and leaving a 4th player in the center. And with that, we can just use the gamepad to fill in the rest of the tiles. No bombs were harmed in the making of this, and we were able to get our last green star. And now it's finally time for Bowser. Just like the rest of World 8, the Great Tower of Bowser Land is very easy. However, it comes at its cost of one meta murder, that being Meowser at the very end. Now you might argue that, oh, Meowser doesn't really die because you see him in the credits, but we've been counting Boom Boom and Pom Pom and they also appear in the credits, so I'm just gonna throw him up here on the list. And that means we have beaten Super Mario 3D World with 27 meta murders. But I'm not done yet. It's time to talk about the bonus worlds. Obviously, we're not going to be able to reach Champions Road. There are some green stars that don't require meta murders but actual kills in order to achieve. And because of that, we can't reach the final world. But that's not going to stop me from getting as far into these bonus worlds as I can. And with that, let's start off on the Star World. Truthfully, this world isn't so bad. It does feature a couple of levels with enemy spam. However, it's not terrible, and we are able to make it through it. This luck comes to an end, though, in Gigantuan Grotto, where the 3rd green star is somewhat of a problem. Normally, you would take a Mega Mushroom and go down a hallway, bounce on some mushroom trampolines, and break through the stone bricks that are guarding it. However, this hallway is filled to the brim with free bloopers, which of course die from the Mega Mushroom. So, how do we deal with this problem? The way that I went ahead and did this was I took the bloopers and lured them all the way over to the left. Note that this was pretty tricky and tedious because the bloopers are very unresponsive. I would have loved to take them even farther, but there is a small problem, that is they have a home. Sort of like the scuttlebugs in Mario 64, they can't leave this home ends at the left side of this room. But they can go to the left side of this room. After we push them there, we go ahead, grab ourselves our Mega Mushroom, and then rush to the right. If we're lucky, none of the bloopers move back and we're able to make it all the way to the mushroom trampolines. After making it, make sure to ground pound, and then take out your stylus and try to stop all the bloopers in the back from moving. If they come towards you, they have a high chance of dying from the mega mushroom, but it's easy to keep them at bay. With that, you've gotten yourself the third green star, and we're able to finish up World Star. Except we don't have enough green stars once again. Right now we need 12 more green stars, which means 1 or 2 levels aren't going to cut it. We're going to need something big. We're going to need World 4. Now yes, this does require the meta murder of the Piranha Creeper in 4-2 again, but it's a worthy sacrifice because after that, there's no more meta murders here except for the boss level, which we can easily ignore. And yeah, this even includes the enemy blockade, which we can cheese by making the boulders roll off the ledge all by themselves. And with that, we still need 2 more green stars, but I know exactly where to get them. Welcome back to the Fire Bro hideouts. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the hideouts in World 4 and in World 7 as both feature 2 Fire Bros or more. The reason Fire Bros are important is they aren't like boomerangs because they do collide with each other, but with ludicrous luck, stuff like this can happen. And just like that, we have enough green stars to reach World Mushroom. So let's continue on. World Mushroom actually isn't that challenging, but it does feature a decision. We can either go to Trouble in Shadowplay Alley for a total of 30 meta murders, or we can go to Deep Black Jungle Drift for a total of 3 meta murders added to our score. This is because both require us to kill enemies to spawn warp boxes with no other way to kill them. So we get to make that choice. I personally went with the 3 meta murders in Deep Black Jungle Drift because, from what I've learned, 3 is less than 30, but I could be wrong about that. After that, we actually have a small problem in Back to Hands-On Hall. We have to kill a Fire Bro in order to lower a set of stairs, but obviously we can't do that. Thankfully, this level features Hammer Bros to allow us to cheese this and let the Hammer Bros take out the Fire Bro for us. This is a little bit precise, but it's not terrible. And now it's on to searching for more green stars. The first trick that was found uncovered 3 of the 13 required green stars. That was in the colored panels room. Now here, when you activate the last tile, it kills all the enemies in the room, which is your fault and it's a screen wipe. However, what if you weren't the last one to activate a tile? That's right, we can actually get enemies to activate the tiles for us. Which means if an enemy activates the last tile, it's the one initiating the screen wipe and allows us to safely get ourselves a green star without any involvement whatsoever. Our next trick comes in 6-Tank, where we have to go ahead and blow up a stone brick in order to reveal the green star. This requires throwing of a bomb though, which obviously is not allowed because that's killing the bomb. However, remember, bombs can blow themselves up or be ignited from other enemies, and that's perfectly allowed. Now, we could try to make a bomb walk over to the stone brick itself, but it's quite high up. Instead, I chose the obvious answer and built a chain reaction of bombs to be ignited by a Fire Bro to actually blow up the crate. This required me to move bombs throughout the level with the gamepad. Note that even the slightest flick of the gamepad will send a bomb flying, which is not allowed. We have to be extremely careful, but by placing all 3 bombs here, we're able to blow up the brick and we're able to get ourselves another green star. The rest of our green stars come from World 1, and there's not much we can do. We have to take down 2 charging chucks in 1-A, we have to take down the giant piranha in 1-3, and we have to take down the original Bowser in 1-Castle. After that, we have 1 more meta murder in World Mushroom, that being this bully, but after that, we're pretty much done with the entire challenge. That's because World Flower is a little less than possible. This is because Flower-1 requires our first actual kills. Not meta murders, but actual kills because it's screen wipes with flip switches. And unfortunately there's no way around this level, or the flip switches in it. But it's finally time for this challenge to reach its end. So let's tally up our Metameters. First of all, in order to beat the main game, that being Worlds 1 through 8, it only took us 27 Metameters, which isn't too shabby. Following that, in order to get to the very final level that we can reach, that being Flower-1, it took us 36 Metameters, which is impressive that we were even able to make it this far. But with that, I would like to say thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye!